America is fighting, and right now losing, a battle against opioid misuse and addiction. Most opioid abuse starts because people are dealing with pain. Prescriptions are handed out too liberally, and government and medical professionals are trying to stop this crisis. Whether it's prescription painkillers, heroin, or synthetic opiates, people are seeing their lives unravel because of addiction.
Opioid misuse leads to addiction and far too often death. Hattiesburg psychologist Dr. Geraldine Datz is an expert on physical and mental health issues. She is tracking the opioid crisis that has left so many people drowning in a whirlpool of addiction in an effort to identify the roots of this epidemic.
There were many forces that brought us to this point. One is from the pharmaceutical industry, of course. Another is from just the patient's desire to be free of pain. Another is from addiction. Heroin is very cheap. Pain medications were easy to obtain. Insurance companies made it very easy to get pain medication above other types of treatments.
That diagnosis of the situation sounds familiar to Heather and Kayla. The two women are residents at Home of Grace Addiction Recovery Center.
Well, it started out with medical conditions. I was getting medicine from the doctors. I have several medical problems, but it just got out of control. It got to where the doctors, what they were giving me wasn't enough, and I was having to go on the streets and buy them, and it just spiraled out of control.
It's what seems to be the troublesome drug for you?
Heroin. It didn't start out with heroin, but it progressed to heroin. It started out with like Lortabs, Percocets, pills.
The program at Home of Grace is faith-based. Both Kayla and Heather needed spiritual guidance after their lives were turned upside down by opioid addiction.
I lost my job as a nurse. I was an RN, and I was fired from the hospital. And from there, it's like each year it got worse and worse. I was on the streets. I was stealing. February of this year, I got arrested for the first time ever, got into legal trouble. A month later, I overdosed.
As a result of a national campaign to change the playing field, policies are being put in place to control prescriptions and find more organic ways to treat patients suffering from pain and other maladies associated with pharmaceutical solutions. Dr. Datz prefers these approaches.
Well, we really believe that the mind-body connection is very key in treating addiction as well as chronic pain and most health problems. And so from an addiction standpoint, we would want to move away from using medication, move away from access to medication to solve problems or be an escape. And for chronic pain patients, the treatment would be including things more like mental health, physical therapy, more multidisciplinary treatment instead of just looking for a pill to solve the problem.
Whether it's prescription medication or street drugs, an addiction to opioids or heroin is a dead-end street that ends with either destruction of one's career or family life, a legal nightmare, or worse. Heather is battling her addiction by turning to God. She advises anyone trapped in the world of addiction to try anything to save their life.
I would encourage them to get help as soon as possible, and I understand that if they're embarrassed or ashamed or all that, but it's not worth dying over.
Yeah, it's not worth dying over. Here in Mississippi, the governor's task force on opioids and heroin has received a $3.8 million federal grant. 80% of that money goes towards treatment. A variety of laws and rules regulating the prescribing of medicine now in the works. Coming up at 6, Doug Walker looks at how first responders are using a drug called Narcan to save lives. And if you or someone you know is facing an opioid addiction, open the WLOX News Now app right now. If you tap on App Extras in the menu bar, you'll find an entire section devoted to opioid abuse.